in the bleachers in the rain. We've shed a million tears and drank as many old-style beers out at the game. Let's go, Cubbies, Ranto.
Michael Cotton.
Ranto.
Michael Cotton.
Ranto and the lovable Lucy.
Mucho Scali.
Ranto.
Michael.
Ranto.
Cotton.
Ranto and the lovable Lucy.
Michael Cotton.
Ranto.
Mucho Scali.
Michael?
Oh, shit, the song was still going.
Were you going to say Ranto at any point?
I have a massive lag going on.
Apparently. Well, go ahead. Let her rip. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work. You know, these days, I think that StreamYard has a whole new situation where if you're too loud, it will just take you away. I don't get the full breadth of your screaming like I used to, Michael. It's we might have to think of a new way to start this show. I don't know. Should we go back and start again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, so I was still like listening to the theme song, and there was probably 10 seconds left in the song, and all of a sudden it cut off. And Danny, you were there like, are you going to say
Yeah,
anything?
what are you doing?
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, this is a terrible start to the show. So we come back in again. Hashtag Chance in the chat, and you can win a Frank Chance postcard sent to you by me with a message of love and doom. That'll go on tonight. And I sent a bunch of them out this week. So if you're expecting a Chance postcard, you're going to get a Chance postcard. And the Son Ranto Show is brought to you by 117 Patreon supporters, 3 of which of you are trial members. Thank you for joining on trial memberships. That means that you can join on for free, see if you like being a part of the Son Ranto Show. And then if you do, then you can stay on. That's what a trial membership is. So join us there, patreon.com/sunranto. Also, Blake Beard's tickets at the Blake Beard on Twitter. Rogue Wave Creative for your branding, graphic, and web design needs. And guess what Lawrence is sending me in the mail as we speak from Rogue Wave Creative?
What's that?
5X jerseys that we're going to be giving away for the person who gets the fattest
right
during the holidays. It is a contest for the largest of our Son Ranto ranters.
It's a great idea because in the winter, it gets so cold and you're like, well, I can't wear my jerseys. I can't wear my Cubs stuff because that's all summer stuff. But when you get your 5X jersey, you can put that over all the warm shit you have.
Yeah.
You just put that right on and you got like a full on, what is it, Adirondack coat or whatever they're called underneath.
Exactly. It's like North Face. We're gonna be the number one hip hop coat. And it's just gonna be 5X jerseys.
North Face, baby.
Also, Cubs PS Plus podcast sponsors this show. Mike Waller will be along later in the end of the show to talk about something he said on his show, the Cubs PS Plus podcast. I thought it was interesting. I thought we should delve into it, and I wanted more opinions on this sort of thing. And I know that you have lots of choices in what to watch tonight. I do realize the ALCS, they are playing real baseball right now, Astros versus Rangers, but I don't know. We're more fun. The AL ball.
And do we really want to watch like a geriatric old man with a burned up shoulder who hasn't pitched in a month get lit up by the Houston Astros?
Tucker Barnhart's on that team now?
Unfortunately, it's Max Scherzer.
I get those guys mixed up these days.
I will say the AL series it's boring. Like, it's boring. The NL, you have one shit team and one like half a Cubs roster just belting home runs. I can get into that. I don't care about the other one. So
yeah, well, yeah, I think everybody's a Phillies fan. That's a Cubs fan just because Schwarber, Nick the Stick,
but Kimbrel and of course we are all very tied to Bryce Harper, despite him never actually becoming a Cub. Man, we really thought he was going to be for a little while.
He named his dog Wrigley.
Yep.
So, what's everybody drinking tonight? See, there's a giant head on your beer, IFG. What the?
Yeah, it's pretty foamy.
looks good.
I've been getting into these fresh hop beers, which
Oh, those are good.
Yeah, if you live somewhere where like microbreweries happen, this is where they like pick the hops and then like 10 minutes later they're brewing beer with it. And you can like just taste the whole farm in it. So this one here is from Future Primitive right here in Seattle. And this one is called Centennials for Millennials, which is a wet hop IPA. Check out the Flying Rat. I'm obsessed. With Flying Rat.
That's my worst nightmare. Is a flying freaking rat. Like, this is not going to sell me a beer. First of all, I'm Gen X, so I can't drink it anyway. It's not for me. Second of all, flying rats, that's not giving me a lot of, like, confidence that this thing's going to taste good.
Well, it is made with freshly picked Centennial hops from Loza Farms right here in Wapato, Washington, which is in Yakima County right there by the Indian Reservation. And it's really delicious.
Blue Dabs 420 writes in, why it always got to be drinking. Effing luscious, fire up the bogs. Amen, brother. I got some tea right here. It's in my IVNV mug, yerba mate, and I'm firing up my little pipa here, otherwise known as a bombilla.
I'll tell you, Blue Dabs, because if I don't smoke anything anymore. They have edibles for that kind of thing. And B, if I were to take one, it would be the most boring me you ever see. Like, I just sit there, I don't say anything, and every so often I laugh, but it's not about anything that's happening. It's just me finding something funny in my own brain.
I was going to say, do we really need Michael Cotton to talk slower, everybody? Like, I don't think we need this. Like, by the end of the show, he's just asleep on the desk every now and again. He says a line from a cop show he saw once. Like, no, we do not need this.
You don't want it. And the worst part is it lasts for like 8 hours for me. I can't even deal by the time I'm done.
So what are you drinking?
I am drinking a dual citizen from St. Paul, Minnesota. It's a Rivertown Brown and
Cincinnati, right?
No, St. Paul, Minnesota. River. Yeah. So, but I'm also,
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well,
You double fisting?
No, I poured it into my Chicago
Central.
Cubs vintage 2003 NL
too close
Central
to
Division.
Too close to the camera. We can't read that.
Yeah. Well, I can't. It's the light is right there. But so it's my 2003 NL Central Division champs glass, because it's as unfortunately we all had to hear again this week. I thought we were done. I seriously thought the whole fucking Bartman thing was just gone and we didn't ever have to think about it again. And this week, Paul Sullivan writes a thing. Everybody wants to write about, it's a 20th anniversary of the time Chicago was the worst city in the world to one guy who didn't fucking deserve it. Like, it was fucking horrible.
Hey,
like,
it's clicks, baby.
That.
Clicks. Same reason I wrote a song about it that we're going to end this show with tonight. Something like this. I'll give you a taste.
Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his fault. Never should.
That's all you get. So the last time we did a show, this was the first time in Cubs history that there was ever an earthquake on a Cubs podcast. Take a look at this. 1 through 2, and the winner is number 1. Take a look at IFG in the corner.
And
looks around.
that corresponds
going on?
to
So you felt that shit.
It was the weirdest thing. So I'm from like hurricane country. I have been through tornadoes. I have driven through downtown Tampa in a flood. Like, I'm here for your, like, everything that Mother Nature wants to attack me with. But I had never been in an earthquake before. And so I'm like sitting here in my car because I was at a family thing. And I was like, oh, it's podcast time. I'm going to go sit out in the car and do that. And the car starts shaking. And I'm like, is there like somebody in the neighborhood? Like, it's the kind of neighborhood where, like, people wander around. And I'm like, okay, so there are like kids jumping on the trunk of the car. I'm looking around, there's no kids. I'm like, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna end up with like hook hand hanging from my from my door, like scary stories to tell in the dark kind of stuff going on? No. I go in the house after the podcast is over. They go, "Did you feel the earthquake? Did you feel it? Did you feel it?" I'm like, "Oh."
That's what that was. Here, I got a better angle of it here. This is the close up, and the winner is number one. Number one is the winner, and that corresponds. What the hell? To the. I love the end when you're like, meh. Guess it was Ghost.
Whatever.
It's the same. That reminded me of wasn't a show we had to watch in like high school about drunk driving. Like, I guess it was a raccoon, and they like ran over a family.
Yeah, exactly.
and the kids were like, "Nah, I guess it was just a raccoon."
Well, it's good to know that in like if the chips are down and there's a natural disaster happening, IFG is just going to shrug it off.
Probably. And been worse.
I've been through earthquakes. Well, anyway, that was the first time that ever happened in Cubs history. But and then you had an earthquake of a week. What happened? We all know the thing that happened with Bryce Harper. I mean, do you want to set this up for us of what happened, the backstory of what happened with Bryce Harper?
Yeah,
and the Braves and.
Sure. If y'all have been living under a rock during this playoff season or taking a break from baseball, there's always some point where somebody's going to run their mouth and get themselves in trouble for it. And this time it was Alana Rizzo. She is on MLB Network, if you're one of the 5 people who watch that channel anymore. And she had some comments to make that she felt needed to be out there about Jake Mintz, who, if y'all are on baseball Twitter, you know him as one half of Cespedes Barbecue. And here's what she had to say about him.
And then some jack off comes in at the end of the season that gets a credential, God only knows why. And the clubhouse is a sacred space. And I remember I've been in clubhouses for the last 16, 17 years. I remember I would go in there, get my job done, and get out.
I remember quite a bit about Alana Rizzo's time working in baseball clubhouses. But regardless, she was soundly shut down by everybody who's ever, watched baseball news. She was dragged by the press and whatnot, and eventually publicly apologized to Jake Mintz for the things that she said. Of course, I'm incapable of keeping my mouth shut about anything, and posted a little bit of something on baseball Twitter, or on my Twitter account at Infield Fly Girl. And it got a little bit of attention on on the score, on the Lawrence Holmes and Bernstein, or what is it now? Bernstein and Holmes. They keep changing the names of things. Bernstein and Holmes. That's it. And here we go.
I will say that inside of this story, like watching the reaction on Twitter, I love when something like this happens where you see someone tweet something clever or prescient and you go, oh, let me check that person's profile. And you go, oh, that person follows me. And that happened with this story. I kept laughing at all the stuff that Infield Fly Girl was tweeting about the Alana Rizzo situation. I was like, oh, she follows me. So immediately got a follow back because there was some really cool, creative stuff there.
I followed her too.
Yeah. And that's fun. And that's how we can broaden our circle of influence when it comes to where we get baseball information and where we get thoughts and takes and opinions on what's going on in baseball from.
That's Lawrence Holmes.
That's cool. And Lawrence Holmes is a really cool guy, and I'm glad that you are in his purview right now because he should be listening to people like you. Like, I agree. You should be in people's purview. That's why, I love having you on this show, and it's so cool that happened.
Absolutely. And I just love that IFG, you're coming with the receipts because Alana Rizzo out there with coming in with her hot takes, forgetting that she had, just the exact words that she was saying, jack
Oh
off,
yeah.
credentialed in the clubhouse for God knows why, all these things. And
Mhm.
with
Yeah, and like I said on
irony.
Twitter, Jake Mintz went in there and pulled a quote. She went in and pulled somebody's whole entire husband.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was just fierce as hell. It needed to be highlighted as an early TFC of the show.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And I mean, we're out here saying shit all the time, but honestly, like, it's been a while since I think I've said something that fucking absolutely, like, not paying attention to who I am. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like at some point you're gonna hear me say, like, the DH is awesome, and fucking everybody needs to kill me when they hear me say it, because I don't think it's gonna happen. But if it does, I mean, come for me.
Well, the whole thing, it just kind of got blown up, and it's partly just Braves Twitter being terrible crybabies in their whole situation. Like, if they're going to blame the fact that they set off Bryce Harper, and that's why he hit all those home runs against them and slammed them out of the playoffs, you got bigger problems with how you're playing the game. If that's what's going to
1000%.
throw you out of the playoffs, and so that's ridiculous. And
We didn't even talk about it. It wasn't even trash talk.
no,
It was nothing.
he said,
It was
"Attaboy Harper." You know, it's not
Attaboy
even.
Harper. I saw a guy in the front row of the NLCS wearing Attaboy Harper on his shirt. They have those now. It's not even like, you can't get in trouble for that.
It's
Like,
also
it's nothing.
it's also like hilarious because Harper just did nothing but tear them to shreds and continue to hit and hit and hit. And now he is still doing that.
I mean,
Well,
just
and that was an
I
amazing play.
personally, look, I have been known to run my mouth in ways that I probably wouldn't want repeated in polite company, but when I do that, I make sure that there aren't literally dozens of reporters with cameras and microphones and stuff standing around me whose job it is to report on the things that I'm saying.
Right.
All
Well,
mics
And if
can be
I
hot.
did, I would be like, "Oops, my bad, I got caught."
Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure he probably just didn't even think anything of it, because he's thinking to himself, yeah, I was saying attaboy Harper. Like, he thought it was funny. He didn't care. It wasn't until,
They made
I
a
don't
thing.
know, they made a thing. Yeah.
Fake news. Hashtag fake news. Speaking of hashtag fake news, well, either way, IFG, I'm happy you had the best week ever of all the ranters. That's just really cool.
It was a little wild.
But-
I was getting people like DMing me, "Hey, they're talking about you on the radio." Oh man, it was fun. Anyway,
And it was for something good this time, not because you were involved in a car chase, which is that's always good when you're not in a police chase. But speaking of more fake news, that was fake news, by the way, too. But Ricketts wrote everybody a letter. Tom Ricketts just wrote us a letter, and it was the same old bullshit. So I'm not going to bore you with any of it, except for one piece of bullshit. And let's see if I can find it here. It's really one paragraph that I want to highlight, which is over the long term, the key to winning championships is consistently competing for a place in the postseason. While baseball playoffs are not random events, they do allow all teams a reasonable chance of winning. Reasonable is the word I want to point out there. You have a team that can play October baseball on a regular, I'll highlight the word regular as well, basis. It is critical we draft and develop. Oh, God, we're never signing anybody, are we? Draft and develop a pipeline of young and talented players. And then he talked about how he watched Dunston, Grace, and Sandberg from the bleachers, which Michael pointed out before the show what wonderful years those were for the Chicago Cubs.
There was only one season. It was 1989. That was the only time that those three guys were on an actual good team. Like, that was it. So the entire rest of the time that those three guys were together was not good. So I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know. He needs to stick to what he's good at, and that's chatting up chicks in the bleachers, because it worked out for him. He got a wife out of it. maybe he just needs to go back to doing that.
Do you think that Ricketts is a big Kid Rock fan? Because all I could think about 1989 was like, it was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. That all summer long. Like, that Ricketts like jams in his Mercedes to Kid Rock and thinks he's cool.
Danny,
What would
are
we
you
have?
lost? It's Taylor Swift. Her whole album's called 1989. Come on, man.
Because she was born then, though. Not because she was partying in the bleachers then. But hey, I think our ratings just went up because you mentioned Taylor Swift, so that's good.
Hey,
We just got
what?
one
So-
extra
so,
viewer.
So like not serious question, but also a little bit serious question, but also not because it's not going to happen. But also, how do we get Kim Ing?
Oh God, I don't know. So that was another big story this week, and Kim Ing is out in Miami now. You see a lot of people say that she's fired, right? She was not fired. The deal was that they were trying to hire somebody in to put above her, like so.
So
She was
disrespectful.
here, and they wanted somebody above her to watch what she was doing or something, because all she did was make the playoffs with a crap team.
Yeah, this is a team that wasn't really high in playoffs. They had a lot of young players. They had good pitching, but they developed that before she probably even got there. And so, are you saying that it would be like the equivalent as if they hired somebody to be higher than Jed?
Yes.
Like if they brought Theo back and it was like, Jed, you're down here, and Carter, you're doing that now. And I agree. Ing, sorry, here's a comment. I want Kim Ing worse than anything in the world. I want to see what she could do with the real payroll. Yeah, that would be great, because I can guarantee you that because she is a woman that made it to the highest ranks of an old boys club, that she is more talented than all of them.
You'd have to be. Because
literally
there are so many people who get this job because their qualification is a friend of the person who's making the hiring decisions.
Jed fucking Hoyer. That's how he's where he's at.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, she's awesome, and damn it, I would so much rather be dealing with her.
So if people don't know this resume that IFG is talking about, she actually came out of the University of Chicago. She started with the White Sox. She got picked up by the Yankees. She has been with she was an assistant GM with the Red Sox. She was with the Dodgers. So she's literally been with the largest teams in the biggest markets in this sport. And then she went to Miami, where she finally got her shot to put her stamp on a team.
Yep.
And she did it with a bunch of young guys and a small payroll.
Yep.
Because she didn't have a lot to work with. Now, you want to know why we need a person? It's because Jed Hoyer doesn't understand what he's got. And she was able to look at her minor league system and go, oh, are we losing these? Okay, we're looking at the minor league system. She brings them up and they do well. She knows how to play with players, which I don't think they can do that in the Cubs front office right now. I don't think they have that ability.
Yeah. And here's more evidence of not having that ability. They get rid of Craig Driver. They get rid of Chris Young, which fine. You want to switch things up. You got some new idea how you want to do things. You're going to bring in some new people. Great. But it doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence when you're building something and some of the people that you've been building it with, you're saying that wasn't good enough. When you fire somebody, it's saying that you made a mistake and you want to get somebody else in there. So you're telling me you made a mistake, but the same people that made the mistake of hiring the people that were a mistake are still in charge of hiring the people, and so they can make another mistake.
Yeah.
That's my point. So I don't know what else to say about that. And we might lose Craig Breslow, who actually does evidence-based, for the Cubs, seem to know what the hell he's doing and seem to be one of the only people, because we've seen some of this young pitching come through, and I think he's been a large part of being an architect of that. Real quick news, and something that you already thought had happened Edwin Rios no longer a Cub. I saw that information the other day.
Go with God,
Oh.
Edwin.
You know what?
Godspeed.
Every time I saw the Iowa Cubs play this year and he'd pop up on the screen, I only saw it a few times. Every single time, though, I was always like, is that the same Edwin Rios? Like, I just
He's
assumed it
Edwin
was somebody else.
Rios, and he sits upon the bench. Now I wish he was a Cub still, because now I thought of a great parody song to write him. Well, maybe we'll have him on the show, and I'll get to write it. What else in this first part notes? Oh, the playoffs so far. We haven't even talked about them, but I mean, we were talking a little bit before the Phillies. We're all just going for the Phillies at this point because they've got a bunch of ex-Cubs on them. Who do you like in the AL?
Nobody.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of too.
I mean, like Rangers over Astros, just because I'm sick of looking at the Astros in the playoffs. But also there's like Creed and the fact that the Rangers are the only team in all of baseball that doesn't host a Pride Night. So like, I just kind of hope both teams lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the time they got to the Final Four here, my decision was made for me. I didn't make a decision. I didn't say, oh, well, I really want the Phillies to win. It's just that I hate Texas teams and I hate Arizona teams. Like just across the board, all of them. I don't want to have anything to do with them. So
yeah,
Phillies.
The worst thing about the postseason usually is and when your team's not in it, it's terrible because all the teams you hate are in it and they're winning, like the Yankees or something like that. You know, it's always some horrible team that's winning. Astros, for example. And then the last thing I want to talk about in this part of the segment, and then we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to bring on Brian and Mike to talk about how teams are built, so we can continue this conversation in terms of the teams that are in the playoffs right now. But LIDOM is starting, which is the Dominican League Baseball, and it starts tomorrow.
I'm so excited.
Take it away, IFG. Tell us all about it, will you?
Yeah. It's really exciting. So, I call it There Is No Off-Season News, because there is no off-season. You can watch baseball all year round. You don't have to give it up. So, LIDOM, it starts tomorrow. You can watch it on the MLB TV app, just like you do baseball that is not in your
that's the
blackout area all year round.
That, right?
No. This is like the third year they've had it on MLB TV, or maybe second year.
Yeah, second, I think.
The MLB is so good at promoting what they have on their app. I had no idea. I seriously thought this was a brand new thing. I was excited this year, and now you're telling me I could have watched it last year and maybe the year before.
Kind of.
Yeah. So I used to subscribe when it was a standalone app. It was like $30 for the year or something, $40 for the year.
Pretty wonky app too.
It was a very wonky app, but at least like you could watch it on a delay. Like you could like come home from work and then watch the games. But anyway, they're all they're in Dominican time, so whatever you see as the time, if you follow like the teams on Twitter and you're looking at their schedule, it's an hour ahead of Eastern Standard Time. All of that being said, the games are live on MLB TV. You can't watch them on demand or on delay, so you have to catch them when they're live. You just like log into the app on your TV like you normally would, and they will be there if there's a game on. I have the first week's schedule here. If you are watching, you want to screenshot it, whatever you want to do. Opening day, so the 19th, you're going to have the Toros versus the Estrellas, the Gigantes versus the Águilas, and the Leones de Escogido versus the Tigres de Licey. So we got some Lions versus Tigers going on.
Nice.
And it's a lot of fun. We've got a bunch of Cubs on my favorite team, the Águilas Cibaeñas. Both Morel brothers will be there. Christopher and Rafael. Alexander Canario will be there. Stropey's going to be in the bullpen. Starlin Castro, if you're into that sort of thing. And we have a couple of our prospects just got drafted to the Tigres de Licey as well, who are like the Águilas and the Tigres de Licey are the like oldest teams in LIDOM. They've been going head to head in the Dominican series since the damn beginning of time, like over 100 years. And I will absolutely post all of this information in the Discord. I hope that I'll be able to tune in and watch the game in real time. Looks like it's going to be at 7:30 p.m. The first games will be starting, so that'll be 6 p.m. Eastern time, so like 3:30 my time over here in the Pacific. And any other questions?
We should throw we'll throw some game watches for the Super Ranters. So make sure you join onto the Patreon and get
another
into
reason.
Discord.
Yeah. Yet another reason, because a lot of these things will just pass you by. You won't think about it, but we will try to keep up on this and at least post, hey, games coming up, so that when the games are coming. And like Danny said, have some game watches and do some stuff like that in the off season, because that's what it's all about. It's all about the community. It's all of us hanging out, talking baseball. It's fun.
And that is the perfect setup to play you a commercial for Patreon. And then we'll be right back with Mike and Brian and us. All over Chicagoland, there are thirsty, frazzled, overworked Cubs podcasters who are struggling to survive one more baseball season in the dog-eat-dog world of unpaid content creation. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can make a difference. Become a super ranter at patreon.com/sunranto, where your support ensures that poor, sad, pathetic, ugly, loser Cubs podcasters can pay for tickets and beer, and in turn line the pockets of the baseball oligarch Ricketts family. Just $1 a month can buy a scorecard. $5 a month can pay for guitar strings to write a Cubs song. And $10 a month almost buys one beer at Wrigley Field. Cubs content creators are the lowest pieces of pond scum garbage that slither over the face of this planet. But super ranters help them get drunk and screw off at baseball games. What do you get out of it? The Sun Ranto Show delivered to your podcatcher without stupid advertisements like the one you're seeing and hearing right now. Plus, at other Super Ranter levels, you can get Cubs music, access to private Sun Ranto pages, the Ranter calendar, and special thanks and Ranter recognition in our live broadcasts. Plus, eligibility for monthly prizes. What does Sun Ranto get out of it? Your money. For tickets and beer. Go to patreon.com/sunranto. That's patreon.com/sunranto. And become a super ranter today.
Do you ever find yourself longing for long walks and talks about catcher metrics? How about a coffee over run differential? Maybe a candlelit dinner dissecting what exactly is the curious case of Miles Mastrobuoni? If you have, I have just the place for you. The Cubs PS Plus podcast. Come join us. Cubs PS Plus, a Northside Numbers game, can be found wherever it is you get your podcasts. And on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at Cubs PS Plus, a spin on the baseball metric OPS Plus. Are you ready? I'm ready. Here we go.
And here we go. Hashtag chance in the chat, and you can win a Frank Chance postcard sent to you by me. And the voice you just heard was that of Mike Waller from the Cubs PS Plus podcast. And I asked him to come on the show tonight to have a conversation. So here he is, Mike Waller. Welcome to the Sun Ranto Show, my friend.
Happy to be back. Hello, IFG. Cotton.
What's happening, man?
And I would also like to welcome a Sun Ranto Show virgin. It's from Amazing Avenue, Brian Salvatore. How you doing? Brian, purveyor of sad Mets takes, I see in your subheading. Well, introduce yourself to us and the Sun Ranto family.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Brian. I am a co-founder of Fans First Sports Network, of which we are all little members here. It's a nice little family gathering here. It's like Thanksgiving, but less political and awkward. Well, maybe we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, wait till hour two.
Yeah. But no, I am a long-suffering Mets fan. I live in New Jersey. I got double shot today, COVID and flu. So I'm kind of going out like Stan Chera right now. So I apologize if I'm a little low energy, but I'll do my best.
So you're a big Aaron Rodgers guy then, huh?
Yes, huge Aaron Rodgers guy. Yes,
It's good to see that the Jets are having a positive impact on the community out there.
yes, absolutely. Yes.
So I wanted to bring Mike was talking about something really interesting on the Cubs PS Plus podcast, and it's like the different ways that baseball teams can be built. And you can have a really young team, you can have an old team, a small market team, a big market team. You could spend a lot of money. You could just develop players, and and we could all. When I mention those teams, you probably have a team that comes into your head that is one of those kind of types of teams. But the cool thing is that in baseball, all of those teams at times have a chance of succeeding vastly. And all of those times teams have a chance of really going belly up and bust, which is why I asked Brian on the show today, because I think it's a great example of a certain kind of way to build a team that didn't work out, at least this year. Now, let's just kind of start there. Brian, you have a team. They went all in, been pushing their chips in the middle of the table for a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, that's enough. Cut the losses. We're starting to dismantle, starting again. As you do the postmortem on your team right now in this offseason, where do you see that kind of rise and fall in with your new shiny owner and how he operated the team?
He is quite shiny. So there's a couple of things I think that are worth noting here. The first is that this was the year the Mets really went for it. Yes, they had gone for it a little bit in the years past, but this season was the season that sort of seemed like this was Steve Cohen saying, I don't care about the rules. I don't care about the fines. I want to win. It is exceedingly rare, and I recognize that, to have your team owned by a fan. Steve Cohen is a lifelong Mets fan, and the Mets are really blessed in that way. The Mets also, their radio and TV lead broadcasters are also original 62 Mets fans. So the Mets are a team that, they're surrounded by folks who just love the Mets. And so
the Cubs used to have that.
They did.
Tom Ricketts used to love the Cubs.
Yes. It's amazing how that changes, isn't it? But so this was the year that Cohen just sort of, put his chips in the middle of the table and said, we're going to go for it. And I think that if you replayed this season 100 times, you would never get an outcome as bad as this year.
Absolutely.
Just in terms of injuries and players getting cold at the wrong time and players getting hot at the wrong time and all those things put together, you would never get this again. And so while I think the national narrative will always be a mess, because look, I'm aware of it, right? I've grown up with this. But I don't think that what Cohen did this year was irresponsible. I don't think what he did this year was foolish. I think it just didn't work. And there is a difference.
Agree.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that, though. Like, the positive is he realized it didn't work and he pivoted. This is something there is no other. I've never seen an owner do this. I've never seen anybody in baseball or any major sport do this. He went all in, tried to do it. It didn't work. So instead of having this sunk cost fallacy and just hanging on to these players because he had already paid for them, he said, well, no, I've already paid for them. Let's use this capital to build my farm system in basically a month. He built like a really good farm system. No one else does that. And despite, the headlines are, oh, they spent a bunch of money and they got nothing for it. But the truth is they spent a lot of money to and they were able to build a farm system very quickly. That's something nobody else has ever thought to do before. I thought it was great.
The Mets farm system generously would have been called bottom third on June 1st of this year. And today, I think the Mets farm system conservatively is called top third. I think there are some that would argue a little bit higher than that, but I think that there's no denying that the overall shape of the farm system is completely different after the fire sale that happened. Now,
and the Cubs took a lot longer to get to what now they're saying top 5. Some people are saying that about the Cubs right now. The Cubs took a lot longer to get there. It took 3 freaking years and a Blue Friday and a lot of teenagers and tinkering around the margins to even sniff at a wild card spot this year. And Mike, like I thought it was interesting what you were talking about on your show, is because it got me thinking about what kind of team are the Cubs trying to build. And Mike, what is your opinion when you thought about that the Cubs are attempting?
I mean, I think we've started to see the shell in place, and they have added free agents each of the last 2 off seasons. They picked up Suzuki and Stroman, and they picked up Dansby Swanson and Jameson Tyone. Regardless of how well any of them have worked out or not, they were, I think a lot of people regarded them as solid to good signings at the time. And what Jed has talked about, the one thing Jed has said that I like and I agree with is you try to stack good decisions on top of good decisions. So I think he wants to get to a place where he's bringing in a couple free agents every year. A couple free agents are probably hitting the end of their contract and moving on, whether it's retirement or just letting them go hit free agency again. And then while you're spending that money on the stars, and what I hope we see this year is they're really missing star power, is to get those stars, you need Christopher Morel maybe taking third base. You need Pete Crow Armstrong maybe in center field. This young talent coming up, giving you something and helping you produce for a low cost because you're paying hopefully Shohei Ohtani and Cody Bellinger and whoever.
Don't threaten me with a good time, please.
Pete Alonso, what do you think?
I'm trying to speak it into existence.
Brian, can we get some Pete Alonso over on the north side of Chicago, you think? Or
no, you can't. No. Again, the Mets owner is a Mets fan, and now the Mets president of baseball operations is a Mets fan. They're not letting Pete go.
My dad loved me enough not to make me a Mets fan. I'm just saying.
It is long suffering, but I mean, you can't really say long suffering in a room full of Cubs fans and really get away with it, Brian.
No.
Because there's long suffering, and then there's long suffering.
I was 4 years old. 4 years old when the Mets won their only World Series of my lifetime. You all have seen a World Series. You have shirts older than their World Series trophy. You're not complaining to me.
I was 11 months old. I was born, and my dad got a World Series in the same year, and then that was the last time he had any happiness.
Yeah, full disclosure, I lost a bet to my sister because I had the Red Sox that year. I was 12, and it didn't work out for me. I lost $1, I believe. The bet was for $1.
Here's a good question, and I mean anybody can answer. Which fan base celebrates their 1969 team more, the Mets or the Cubs?
That is a good question.
I try not to think about that.
Yeah, it's hard to know because we get those guys. We talked about that team constantly, but the team that almost was, and then of course the Amazons. So speaking of like them,
they're both nice.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of lore for both teams, but when I think about the Mets pushing all in, I think about other teams that did it this year. The Padres, for example.
Yeah.
And now they're pivoting, but not quite as quickly as the Mets did.
I have some serious tinfoil hat ideas for both of these, but it's very conspiracy theory-ish. And I don't like that I'm thinking it, but I hate the fact that I might not be wrong.
But when I think about how teams are built, and it got me thinking of also the kinds of teams I like to see built. And, and when I see a team like the Rays be efficient and really develop players very well, and I don't know how they do it. It's almost like they've just got a magic kettle that they spray pixie dust on these guys and it makes superstars to trade to the Cardinals. It's like there's that kind of team that really focuses on that kind of thing. You've got a team like the Astros who went all in on on cheating and also all in.
I was going to say, all in on garbage cans.
They got a bunch of Wall Street guys to run their team, and it worked. So you could see that it could work in that situation. Could work for a Rays to develop the guys, but I see like the Cubs be kind of like patchwork quilting it with all these different ways. Like, well, we'll do a little bit of this and we'll do a little bit of star power and we'll get the guy from Japan and we'll just gotta make a little stew of a team and we'll hope it works out. And it's all always about catching lightning in a bottle. That's what we say every damn year. We have to catch the lightning in the bottle. Everything's got to go right. So, but what's interesting when I thought about it, and sorry to talk so long, but it's that I like a team like that. I like a patchwork team. A couple young guys, couple old guys, couple veterans, couple hot shots. I don't like what we had this year, which was the travel ball boys, which was boring. So I'd rather do what the Mets are doing than be as conservative as the Cubs have been. I guess that's what my thought on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I thought this year is I don't like it, but I think Jed was clearly trying to stay under the CBT this year.
Absolutely.
Which I think from what he said, what they've done, be it like being willing to eat those salaries of Mancini and Barnhart, I think they're going to push over next year. So I'm hoping that is evidence that they're going to go out and try to get a star or two. You get a star or two, all of a sudden now, like that lineup gets deeper. It gets a lot more fun to watch. Maybe a little bit less the travel boys. And there's room for, hopefully they leave room for the kids to come up.
Yeah, David Lieb says exactly what I'm thinking here. So Danny would like a well-constructed roster. Thank you.
So more than 12 guys, right?
Yeah. With more than 12 dudes on it. Yes.
And I like what you were saying, Danny, the patchwork team put together, but that's got to be a plan. There has to be some sort of plan on how these guys fit together. And, Mike and I see things quite a bit differently. If you do get on the Patreon and you get in there, you'll see me and Mike going back and forth. And I disagree with Mike in the fact that I think Jed is not putting good decision on good decision. I don't think Jed really knows what he's doing. I think he's looking at spreadsheets, and I don't. So, and I think what it comes down to is that Mike is much more optimistic than I am on a lot of these things.
Brian, do you believe in the Mets plan? Do you it seems you guys got whiplash. You must have whiplash from it.
Yes, that is part of it. Well, here's what I wanted to say too. I think that there's this fallacy that the Mets were going to punt on next season. And maybe they did tell Max Scherzer that to get him to waive his no trade clause. But Steve Cohen is the fourth richest owner in American sports. The guy has pieces of artwork that are worth almost as much as the entire Mets roster. He is not going to stop spending money for anyone. So in a way, I always like the Mets plan because the Mets emergency plan is always going to be open the checkbook, right?
Yeah, throw money at it.
Right.
If he wants to win, eventually that's going to freaking work. And
exactly.
I really do I'm so much less optimistic than our good friend Mike Waller. And I know that he knows this. And I hope that he still respects me for it. But I really do feel like the Cubs office heard that half the teams get into the playoffs and have decided that their plan for the foreseeable future is to be halfway good.
Well, I think this year's going to tell us a lot. If they don't go out and get a star, if they roll back the same kind of roster that can win 87 games and maybe sneak into the playoffs, then that's kind of what they're going to be aiming for. And then I'll be more in agreement with you.
So here's a question from the chat here. Andy Wells writes in, so who is the next Mets manager?
It's going to be Craig Counsell, and it's going to piss off a lot of people in the process, but that's what's going to happen.
Get him out of our division, at least. God, we hate his rat face. Get him out of here.
I just think
I would take him over Rossi. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, we want him too.
I think with the connection with Stearns there from Milwaukee, I just think it makes sense. And, it's there's rumors that they're going to try and bring back Carlos Beltran again after the failed manager experiment that came out after the Astros cheating scandal. I could see that maybe. I still think people are pretty salty about that. I give that a little more time maybe before running him out there again. But the reality,
why not? The players that did it are still freaking in the ALCS right now. They're playing a game right now, and they're the ones that actually cheated.
That is true.
Yeah. So why can't Beltran come back? Who cares?
But
if anybody can bring him back, it's the Mets.
Yeah, that is true. But I really think that we've seen over the last decade, certainly, I mean, more than that, but really over the last decade, how certain organizations just don't value an on-field manager anymore. And I think that the Mets are moving into a situation where the manager is going to be just a functionary of the front office. And so
Mets PPT.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
We
So
do.
I don't know if it matters as much who the Mets next manager is. I mean, I like Counsell. I think he's a good manager, and I'm a big Beltran fan from his playing years. You know, I would love to see him back with the Mets, but ultimately they're want to have somebody who's going to follow the front office's mandates. Whatever.
Well, luckily, we've got Cubs manager David Ross with us here tonight. Any questions, everybody? What do you want to know?
Exactly what I'm told.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me pull the string. Whatever Chad says. Whatever Chad says. You know. No, I agree with you. I think that we're in a place right now where they have an analytics department, and it makes a lot of the decisions. And
But that's where everybody's going.
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
and it's
if you saw
follow
on
the
Twitter
leader.
today, Dusty Baker's had all kinds of comments about he doesn't like the interruption from the analytics team. And he's totally old school. That's why Joe Madden's not working anymore. And that's the way Tampa works. That's the way the Dodgers work. That's the way the Astros work. I mean, that's the way, frankly, a lot of the best teams in baseball that have actual plans, that's the way they work.
Are you saying science is real?
I've done
Come on,
my
Aaron
own
Rodgers.
research on this, and I don't know. So I wanted to bring up some of the top and bottom pay. So I'm going to bring up this this table here, and it had the Mets as the number one team. And I know that these numbers aren't exactly right because there's all this other stuff baked in that counts against and all that stuff. But the Mets were by far and away the top spending team. And it was not even close. Like
Damn Bobby Bonilla's fault.
It's all Bobby.
Let's all blame Bobby Bo.
We thought that maybe they were going to roll his old bones out there at the end of the year just because they had no more guys because they traded everybody.
Do they actually do they ever bring Bobby Bonilla back for Bobby Bonilla Day?
So there was talk of that happening once Cohen bought the team, but it hasn't happened yet.
I
my
heard
God. That would be
Cohen
great.
say, he's like, oh, we're going to put him in a golf cart and drive him around the stadium and
Yep.
give him a big check, and we're going to make a holiday out of it every year.
Yes,
I was
pre-game.
like, yes, let's
Give
do it.
Bobby Bonilla a giant check.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
A giant novelty check. You got to do that. I mean, come on, it's New York. That would play so well with
It
Mets
would.
fans. It really would. So Mets far and away. But then out of the top 5 teams, I mean, well, actually, let's just look at the top 10 teams. They're almost all playoff teams. The Yankees weren't. The Padres weren't. But the Phillies,
it's funny
the
how the
Rangers.
Cubs are one spot out of the top 10, and also they were one game out of the playoffs.
Funny how that works, huh? They're just like all you had to do was like not sign Eric Hosmer, and you're in the playoffs. Really, so
Hey, I tried to tell them.
I know we all tried. We tried. We'll buy a bigger billboard next time outside the stadium. But I mean, obviously, as you look at this list, it doesn't always work. The Angels, it'll never work for. But you know, if you spend money, you'll get in. And here's the bottom of the payroll. There's only the Brewers and the Diamondbacks, who really made it pretty far before they. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to win. I don't think they're going to win another game this year, to be honest. Like after they started losing, I think that's it. And then the Orioles, of course, which, you know, I think you could call them like a super young and really cheap team. So they've probably have a bright future ahead of them because they've got both of those things going on. They can afford to spend.
The Orioles will be really interesting in the coming years because as these guys start to hit their arbitration years and then they will need to be signed and stuff, it'll be interesting to see where they go with their payroll because they're very low right now, but that's a very good team. And if they want to get where obviously everybody wants to get, like they were close this year, they need to add that payroll. They need, maybe they, and that's a team that maybe only needs like one person or two people, but they need to go for it, and they should not. And with all these young guys, if they're going to try and keep this thing together for a good run, they're going to have to jump into that top third.
Yeah, they got great experience this year. So what do you?
I was going to say they're going to have to watch too. They may run into the same problem the Cubs have. Hopefully, they deal with it better. The Cubs had all that young talent from 2016 forward, and we know how it's all worked out. But at the time, they never extended anybody. They let them all get expensive year over year. So
Hell,
they had
they
an
let
escalating
Schwarber.
payroll
Yeah,
without.
how'd that go?
Yeah,
It didn't go well.
Yeah.
So I think you need to pick a path. You either need to do something like the Braves, create a cult and get everybody to sign, or Or you have to-
I've not heard that take yet, and I love it.
or you have
True.
to pick a couple, get a couple guys locked down, and then some of the guys like the Astros have let Carlos Correa go. They've let other guys go.
They
They've
let
picked
Justin
a few.
Verlander go and then got him back.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know, for a couple of prospects.
Thanks, Matt.
yeah. Well, it's kind of funny how that there are just some teams that are just always in play for these guys, and just some teams that they're not even in the conversation. And what's I think frustrating to Cub fans is that we're not acting like the Mets are currently acting. Like we have a owner who sat there at a party and told me that it was okay that we didn't trade Wilson Contreras because we got the second round, we got another second round pick in the draft. And he's like telling me this at a freaking party, the owner of the team. And I'm like, this does not bode well for us having a good team anytime soon. If he's getting excited,
Tom Ricketts has senators to buy.
exactly, exactly. And as long as Cub fans just sit out there like pounding $15 beers, like and packing the place for a 500 ball club. What?
And we would have to stop doing that for 5 years to change his mind anyway.
Exactly.
But that's never going to happen anymore because now that they've created a postseason, an end of year tournament for all the little leaguers, it's never going to happen because
it's been an end of year tournament since 1969.
Yeah, but now half the teams get in. You don't even have to be good.
I would
lower
actually
percentage
say
than every
it
other
was
sport.
the playoffs from 69 to 94. It wasn't actual playoffs because there were only the East and West. But since 94, there's been at least
The
4 teams.
Arizona
in there.
Diamondbacks won like 84 games or something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but it is absolutely now. I mean, I don't know that you can deny that it's an end of season tournament, and
Oh, it absolutely is.
So yeah, so Brian, you heard us loving on the Phillies, and you're probably not loving on the Phillies because you're an NL East guy.
Are you pulling for the Diamondbacks, or are you just trying not to think about it?
I'm pulling for the Diamondbacks or a meteor, one or the other.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks pretty much knocked us out. Not that we didn't deserve it, we truly did. Diamondbacks have a good young team, and I think that's another example of the way a team can be built. Like if they start adding, and who knows if they will because their fans aren't even showing up for this series. I screenshotted this. Did you see the tickets were $16 for the game tomorrow?
Wow.
Now I know it's a Thursday at 2:00. People got to work. But are you telling me you don't have one freaking PTO day that you can take to go to the game if you're a big fan?
Dude.
$16. I mean, you can get in. You can
This
sit
is
by
a
the pool for
situation-
200.
This is a situation like the Cubs had back in 03, where people were flying from Chicago to Atlanta to watch playoff games because it was cheaper than getting a ticket at Wrigley. And people in Philly can fly to I think Phoenix is the hub for Southwest. So like probably cheap flights, go to Phoenix, buy your
Philly's an
$16
American hub.
ticket and watch your team sweep. Like, I don't know. I'll bet there's a lot of Phillies fans doing that.
So, Brian, what kind of team you want your owner to build right now?
One
An
that wins.
expensive one.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, no, okay, no. We love one that wins, but what do you think that looks like? Because like Mike was saying on his show, I mean, you can have an older team, a younger team pitching.
Are you going to develop, or are you just going to keep buying? Like, you think what's happening?
Well, first of all, the Mets do have a pretty sizable homegrown core in there right now. Between Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez, there is a good young core that they are going to build around. Pitching is something they don't have in the minor leagues right now. There's a lot of good position player depth, and so they're going to have to buy some pitchers. And I fear buying pitchers always because we know how most of those contracts work out. And I'm not even talking about the money left on it, just you're now rostering a guy who is pitching at a third of his market value when you signed him, and you're stuck with, there's been so many of those guys in Mets history. So they're going to have to buy some pitching. But I do think they have a really strong young core. What Cohen has said time and time again is he wants to become the East Coast Dodgers. He wants to have a really young, controllable core that he peppers with the free agents that are needed at the time. And so for the first couple of years, he had to buy those players. And this year, he had to buy the farm that will get him that young, sustainable, controllable team in the future. What I would like to see from Cohen, side note here, I wish more owners acted like Cohen in general. Cohen likes owning a baseball team, and he isn't afraid to spend his money on a baseball team. And it's funny, I grew up in the shadow of Yankee Stadium, essentially, in northern New Jersey, and all my friends were Yankee fans growing up, and I hated Steinbrenner. I just thought he was the worst person that ever lived. And now I'm kind of come around on George Steinbrenner. Like, he was spending money for his team. I can't really get mad at that, And so I wish that more owners would do things the way that Cohen's doing them. But I think the path forward for the Mets is, in the short term, is buying some controllable pitching. They seem to love Japanese pitching. I mean, Kodai Senga, I don't know how many Senga games you guys got to see this year.
Oh, a couple. The Ghost Fork.
Ghost.
Hey, go for Yamamoto. Somebody should.
They are in hard for Yamamoto, and so I think that maybe that's a market they're going to explore. And also, being in New York, it's the most multicultural city in the world. They will bring Asian fans to the ballpark if they build an Asian fan base,
especially in Queens.
Okay, so serious, because this is leading into the question that I've been holding this microphone in front of my face to ask you for forever.
Okay.
What do you think? Percentage chance? Are the Mets in on Ohtani?
Yes. They're in on Ohtani. I'm not going to say it's a good chance. I think they have a 25% chance of getting Ohtani, and here's why.
That's a pretty big chance.
Yeah.
Over here in the north side of Chicago, we have a 25% chance of just being in on him. And you're like, we have a 25% chance of having him on our team. And I'm just like, I wish
we're not
that going.
We're not even gonna try.
I think he went up on the Dodgers. I really do. I think he's.
I think that's the most boring possible option, and I refuse to admit it.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But I think they're going to go for him.
You're all sleeping on Oakland.
I don't think he wants to stay in LA.
Another California team, like, I don't know, the A's maybe.
Yeah.
They got money to spend. New stadium coming. I don't know.
He really wants to be the big fish in a small pond.
Because I can't convince myself that the Cubs are actually going to be in on him. I really, 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 with my whole entire heart, hope he signs with the Mariners.
If he's not with the Cubs, I hope it's the Mariners. 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Waller.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, so we heard Brian kind of talk about a little bit about what he thought he wanted to see from, his team. What's kind of your best case scenario? Like, what would you like to see the Cubs do?
So I think they've picked a clear direction. I mean, they've talked a lot about pitching and defense. We found out today the Cubs have 3 players as finalists for the Gold Glove. Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner is a lead up the middle. Pete Crow Armstrong is one of the few players to get an 80 grade on anything, and it's his outfield defense.
You're welcome, by the way.
Yes, that's why the Mets won't trade with us anymore.
By the way,
we have hobby bias for that.
Blue Dabs floated this one earlier for you, Brian.
Nope.
Tyone for
straight up, let's go.
I'm in. Let's do it. No, so I think
I'll throw in Edwin Rios. Oh wait, I can't.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, we lost him today.
So the Cubs have all this young pitching coming up, and I think that's clearly the path they're going to go. Hope they may have to add another starter this offseason. We'll see what happens with all the options if Stroman stays, if they pick up Hendricks. But I think what they need to do is the offensive players are a little bit behind. What we saw this year was overall an above average offense. They lack that kind of one big bat to kind of make it all work, so that Ian Happ's not hitting third, Dansby Swanson's not hitting fifth. You get one, maybe 2 more big bats in there, and all of a sudden you
Well,
can have Dansby hitting
But
seven,
where do they
Haps
play?
leading
You
off.
need
That's the
Bellinger.
hard part.
You need Bellinger back. The problem is,
You need Bellinger plus one, so you
the
need
plus
two.
one. The problem with the Cubs is that they've been slightly above average for all the signings. They're like, this guy's a 1-win player. This guy's a 2-win player. And they're like, oh, look how great we are. There's not negative WAR players. Who cares? It's not enough. You need one dude that's like 9 wins and another dude that's 6. And now you're talking. Yeah, you need some star
100%.
power, just like you say. I agree.
And this is a year where they have money coming off the books. They've got the promise of some young kids coming up. I would not be, depending on what they do, one thing I want them to do is leave room for some of these kids to play a little bit. So I don't want them to go sign a center fielder and go sign a first baseman like they did last offseason.
Yes, thank you.
Bellinger's perfect because he's kind of a hedge between the two. If PCA is great, Bellinger can play first base. If Matt Mervis is great, maybe PCA gets a little more time in AAA and Bellinger's in center field.
Okay,
I mean,
but
they're-
are the Cubs going to be willing to give Cody
Or
Bellinger
maybe you put
more
all
money
3 of
than
them on the
Dodgers
team.
will?
Well, does Cody want to go back to the Dodgers?
Why wouldn't he?
Because they disrespected him like we disrespected Kyle Schwarber. So I wanted let's wrap up this segment. We have a great guest coming on, and I don't want to short shrift our time with him. Ken Schultz is going to be here to talk about a really awesome ceremony that Laura Ricketts, our team's owner, was involved in this past weekend. And but Brian, I'm so glad you came on to talk a little Mets with us. I'm sure we're going to do it again as the off season goes on, and definitely next year when we play each other.
Yes. Just real quickly, I want to put out there, you are all welcome to Citi Field anytime. I'll be happy to be a tour guide there. There is really good food and drink to be had at Citi Field.
I agree. I love the sausages. I've spent many a game at Citi Field. I lived in New York for 18 years, so I do enjoy that ballpark. Way better than that dump at Yankee Stadium, which I call Banky
Danny's
Stadium.
closeted. Danny is a little bit.
I have a Mets sweatshirt. I do.
Yeah,
Full disclosure, I do own one.
That whole time in New York, he was proudly flying its Mets colors, but then he went back to Chicago and he had to kind of hide it again.
Yeah, you can't be a Yankee fan, and the real New Yorkers are Mets fans.
Curtis Grant.
My wife's family's from New York Mets territory for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the Yankees are some transplant shit. That's when you've moved there from I don't know, the middle of Virginia, and you ended up
or you're getting ready to move to Florida.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
a cop.
a Yankees fan because I can watch them when I go to Florida.
Yeah, it's the cop team too. It's big time the cop
absolutely.
team. Definitely the cop team. I used to always tell who the undercovers were on the subway because they all had Yankee jackets on. I was like, evening officers. He was like, how do they know? I'm like, oh, maybe because you look like straight out of Central Casting. Law and Order. So anyway, thank you for coming. Cubs PS Plus podcast. I saw you got a new episode that just came out even after the one I'm referencing. Don't you?
No, that was the last one.
Oh, that was the last one. Okay.
Probably have another one out tomorrow or Friday.
Okay. Very cool. So everybody should listen to that wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Look it up. Cubs PS Plus podcast.
You should, you know what? Go listen to Mike's podcast, the Cubs PS Plus podcast. And while you're listening, a little scavenger hunt. Listen to the things that Mike says and see if you can pick out what made me stop. I was literally in the middle of a project in my yard. I stopped.
My phone started blowing up.
My brother. And I'm like, I'm listening to your podcast. And I gotta. So
sounds like we got a post show topic over
Right.
on the Discord tonight, I think. So let's talk about that later.
Brian, where can we find you on the socials?
Yeah, tell us.
I'm a bad social media user at this point in my life, but I am at Brian Needs a Nap just about everywhere. And Home Run Applesauce is the podcast network. It's part of Fans for a Sports Network. And you'll find me at Citi Field waiting in line for a Pat LaFrietta steak sandwich or a Premio Italian sausage. So
That sounds amazing. I haven't been back since they blew up Shea Stadium, so I'm looking forward to it.
You gotta come hang out. It's the best.
City is
I
awesome.
went to Shea Stadium and in consecutive days, Shea and Yankee, the year that they were getting rid of them, And I could totally understand why they wanted to get rid of both those places.
Yeah. So on that note, thanks for joining us tonight, Brian and Mike, and we'll be right back with another guest.
Take care, folks.
If you're like most Americans, you buy shit. Lots of shit. Sometimes you buy shit for other people. Sometimes you buy shit for yourself. And sometimes you buy shit you have to buy just to stay alive. So why not buy shit through the Sunranto affiliate? Links at sunranto.com/shopping. We've got tons of shit you can buy. Go to sunranto.com, click on the shopping link, then click our ads and buy shit. We've got Amazon. They've got tons of shit. But you can also buy MLB shit, NBA shit, NFL shit, Fans Ed shit, Southwest Airlines shit, Fanatic shit, Reebok shit, Wine of the Month shit, Beer of the Month shit, Bear Mattress shit, StubHub shit, Lid shit, Sports Memorabilia shit, Volcanica coffee shit, Vibrator shit, Condom shit, Bag shit, NHL shit, and Audible membership shit. There's a whole lot of shit that can help the Sunranto Show stay on the air so we can keep talking shit. So buy shit today through sunranto.com/shopping. Thanks. Cubs Jesus thinks you're the shit. Stuff. Hey, Cubs fans, at Amazon.com, do you buy lots of stuff? Why not support the Sunranto Show by shopping through sunranto.com/stuff? All you gotta do is fill your cart at Amazon with lots of stuff. Then before you check out with all of that wonderful stuff, head on over to sunranto.com/stuff and click any of our Amazon links before you buy your stuff. Check out like you normally would with all that beautiful stuff. And the Sunranto Show will get a small kickback because of the stuff you bought. And you'll be helping the Sunranto Show buy all the stuff we need to stay on the air talking about the Cubs and other stuff. Plus, you could win a monthly prize if some of your stuff is chosen for Amazon stuff of the month. And if you win, we'll send you more stuff. Sunranto.com/stuff. That address again is sunranto.com/stuff. Hashtag chance in the chat. You can win a Frank Chance postcard sent to you by me with a message of love and doom. And as I said earlier in the show, there's a bunch of chance postcards in the mail as we speak. I got them all sent down with my message of love and doom. It was going to be a little bit too doomy if I wrote them 2 weeks ago. So I took a break, took a few walks, cleared my head, wrote my messages of love and doom. So,
you just need to start writing the love part. Like, don't put a name on it, but write the love part after some wins. And then wait for the doom part.
Well, it is the off season, Michael. What am I supposed to do now? So
they're not losing.
I do want to mention this though. I just
for every time the Phillies play and we see what we could have had.
Every time Kyle Schwarber does something good, I write the doom part.
Nick Castellanos, Craig Kimbrell,
all of them. So I did want to mention that, Christmas is coming. I know you got to buy a lot of crap for your people. So please do it there's so many different stores at sunranto.com/shopping. All you do is click our links and then you buy the stuff you were going to buy anyway. And then we get a little kickback from that thing that you bought and you don't have to pay any extra. Same thing is true with Amazon. If you go to sunranto.com/stuff and all the Amazon stuff you buy, just go through there and you buy the stuff you're going to buy anyway, click on our link, and then we get, honestly, pennies. But it's money that Jeff Bezos would have gotten.
But
you
then
know what else?
Also get entered into our Amazon prize thingy, and also you're helping to support my craft beer habit.
Yeah, and a good point that you could win it, and whoever bought the iPhone case won this cute little thermos last time, and you have not claimed it. So if you bought the iPhone case, you are the winner last month, and you could have this. I will send this to you.
Yeah, Danny, if they want to do something that gets us more than just pennies, there are Sunranto t-shirts with the Cubes fan on it There are
On
there are
Amazon.
bull penis t-shirts. There are John Baker Day shirts and hoodies and all sorts of stuff out there as well. But here's a thought. Think out of the box. People have so much stuff. Everybody wants stuff. Fine, whatever. You don't have room for it. It just gets put in your closet or put away. Nobody sees it anymore. Get somebody a subscription to Ranto Patreon.
I love the idea.
Just,
Brilliant.
I think we have a thing where you can pay for 1 year, right, Danny?
Yeah, 1 year at a time.
That's one of the options. It's slightly cheaper. And what you could do for your Cubs fan friend is just pay for a year subscription for them. Boom. They got it. They are into like,
You know what they bought them? Friends. You
Friends.
just bought them friends for Christmas at patreon.com/sunranto.
And bought them getting their phone blown up by Cotton for having bad opinions.
Oh, that's true. I mean,
So anyway, we're
is
just asking you to
friends,
help
but
us.
Sometimes everybody has friends like me. You don't necessarily want to have your number.
Yeah. Remember when I gave Eric Wheelo your number?
I was gonna say, Danny, giving my number to Wheelo.
Yeah, that was great. So before we get off the rails too much more, I do want to bring on my friend Ken. He is a contributor to Outsports, and he was involved with a Glenn Burke ceremony the other day where they gave him a plaque on is that a pylon? What is that thing? It's just a giant post. It's the column.
Yeah, I think they'd like to call it a monument, but let's say obelisk.
Monument.
Just
Obelisk.
Obelisk.
I
Love
like
it.
it.
I'm an English major. I got to drop words like that. So
Why use a $5 word when a $20 word will do better?
Just don't drop an obelisk on your foot. That could hurt. So you were involved. You gave a speech at this obelisk plaque unveiling, and you talked a little bit about Glenn Burke, who is now a gay sports icon, I would kind of venture to say. And first of all, you did an awesome job, and I really enjoyed your speech. And the Cubs owner, Laura Ricketts, was there as well. Here's a picture of you giving your speech, and they got a little rainbow flag in front of the plaque before it was ripped down. Here is you guys ripping down the flag. That's not you ripping it down. That's
no, it's Laura and one of the board members, I think.
And one of the board members. And then there's Laura giving her speech. And anyway, everybody just did a great job. It was a small but mighty gathering. And tell me about how you kind of came upon doing that and being asked to be the person that represented Glenn Burke.
Sure, yeah, a bit of good fortune, actually. It's Andrew Moranis wrote the definitive biography of Glenn Burke a couple of years ago called Singled Out. And I had interviewed him for an article for Outsports and for a podcast for Outsports for it. And he knows like as much as you can about Burke's life and career. It's about 250, 300 pages. And it's the kind of book that, like most great baseball biographies, figure out a way to kind of put the context of the player's life within important historical context of the times. And Singled Out is the first one that does it with a specifically gay LGBTQ focus on all the history. So it's kind of like you read the book and go, oh, this one's for us. That's great. So Andrew's awesome and an incredible writer. And
you were saying to me that some of the backdrop of the book talks about like the Castro district and kind of like what he would do after the games versus what if some of his teammates were doing after games.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Glenn Burke is most people, and I think a couple people during their speeches mentioned that he was outed. He did not voluntarily come out as an active player. And it is technically true he did not come out, as we know, like making a coming out announcement in modern times because it was 1977. But right. Glenn Burke, as you referenced, Danny, did not bother to hide who he was at any point.
If I recall correctly, and forgive me, I'm not terribly good at like baseball before I started watching it, but wasn't Glenn Burke the gentleman who was offered a very significant bonus if only he would agree to marry a nice young lady?
Yes. That was after his rookie season in 77. During the 77 season, like when they went on road trips to, for example, San Francisco, he would go out and players would put 2 and 2 together and realize, oh, he's gone to the Castro. So yeah. And when they were at home in 77, manager Tommy Lasorda, his son, Tommy Jr., was openly gay.
Right.
And Glenn Burke would go out to the bars and clubs at WeHo with Tommy Jr. and would also, as I mentioned in the speech, do a lot more to uplift and support Tommy Jr. than his father ever did. That Tommy Lasorda's pictures and all in his office, it would be like Billy Crystal and Frank Sinatra, not one of his son. So so during the off season, when word like that kind of got around baseball that this is what Glenn Burke was doing, Al Campanis, hey, there's a name, called in Glenn Burke, and pretty much, as you said, in Fly Girl, not overtly but kind of obliquely told him that, so with the Dodgers, we like to support our players that should they choose to find someone to get married, we might offer them like a cash bonus to go on and have a good honeymoon. And the implication obviously was, if you marry a woman, we'll give you $75,000. And Glenn Burke said no. And within a year or two, he was off to the Oakland A's.
Yeah, and they traded him, and he was, and I'm going to put up his stats real quick. Sorry to cut you off, Michael, but
It's okay.
He got traded to the A's, and soon after, he faced quite a bit of homophobia from Billy Martin, who was the manager at the time. And then he was out of the league not too much longer at that. And you look at his stats too. I put up his minor league stats here on purpose because they're quite impressive. If you look at 1974, between A and Double A, he slashed 305, 356, 426. And I understand these are minor league numbers. So, but he still was pretty good in Triple A in Albuquerque in 76, and it made his way to the Dodgers. And he hit okay, but he was still a rookie. But then for him to be outed, that was pretty early in his career that happened to him.
Right.
And so if you think about all the stress that puts you under, you're under financial stress, you're under emotional stress. I'm sure that a lot of words are being thrown at you that are really unpleasant. You're being dehumanized. How do you perform underneath those conditions? And, what did Glenn Burke end up doing like after his time with the Dodgers and A's?
Yeah, unfortunately, he was kind of adrift for most of the rest of his life. That he would go through a series of relationships, trying to find, just living with various guys, mostly around the Bay Area, which is where he grew up. He would occasionally find little bits of work here and there, but never anything consistent. He had personal demons as well. He battled addiction. There were times where he was homeless. But there were also times like he was one of the first players, certainly first ex-major leaguers to sign on with like the San Francisco Gay Softball League, which is now in its 40th year this year, I think. And he was a star of the league back in the day. And I've talked to gay friends I know from back when I lived in New York that he remembers playing Glenn Burke in gay softball, and Glenn Burke was still killing it. So, like, the athletic ability was still there, but
that would honestly suck to be on the other team.
Yeah. You just got this freaking hotshot who literally played in the majors.
Right. Yeah. But the latter half of his life, like when he was a major leaguer and he would go visit the Castro district, like he was treated like a star. Like there was no like concept in the gay community in 1977 or 78 that, here's this Major League Baseball player that's one of us now to hang out. So everybody, he was welcome in any club, any bar he wanted to go to. But after baseball cut him loose and he was kind of adrift for the rest of his life, that stardom, as you would expect, kind of gradually waned. And he was this gay softball league was kind of his closest connection to the community for the latter half of his life, I think, for the most part.
And he died very young in his early 40s of age in 95. Yeah. So tragic end, too short of a life. And, it's just one of those situations that makes me wonder, because we talked a lot about how, baseball it's been a segregated sport, and it segregates people, it segregates boys and girls very young. And a lot of sports do, but, it does it very young, almost unnecessarily so. I know you and I were talking about at the bar about how, like, it's sports is not necessarily still a very welcoming environment for the LGBTQ community. And so it makes me wonder how many people are left out that could have been big stars, and I wonder what it's going to take for that to change.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
On the other hand, I wonder how many people are currently participating in the sport that are not able to do so openly. Like, I really do feel like we've already had the first woman Major League Baseball player, and we just don't know who she is.
right. Yeah. I would say, I mean, we know that there are a total of 3 players who have come out, or we know are gay at any point in their lives. There's Burke, Billy Beane, and TJ House just came out last winter. And it's interesting that Laura Ricketts, during her speech, had a message from Billy Beane that she wanted to make sure that everybody heard that day. And what struck me about that was that he talked about, when he heard about Glenn Burke's life, what struck him was that, again, that Glenn Burke was so open about who he was within the context of the late 70s, because Billy Beane is someone who played as a very closeted gay player in the mid 90s and went to, I mean, as if you've ever seen or read his life story, went to extreme lengths to make sure that nobody found out that he was gay while he was still an active player. And I really got that sense in listening to Laura read his words, that there was that like admiration and also kind of a bit of a pang of almost personal regret that Burke was able to kind of have that courage to just be out as himself, that Billy just was a life that he couldn't live. But I think what that underscores is kind of what we all know as queer people, is that nobody comes out in the same way as anybody else. We're all do it on our own timelines, in our own personal ways. And Billy's was just the way where he didn't feel comfortable until after he retired and opened up a restaurant to talk about his sexuality.
Well, and sadly, the story of Burke, it like wasn't a good one. It's not like, because he was comfortable with himself and because he didn't change how he did anything, it didn't necessarily work out well for him, and that's a shame, because it kind of sets that precedence for a Billy Beane or whoever to
stay closeted.
Yeah, to hide it more so, which is a bummer, because I mean, here we are. I mean, we're almost 50 years later, and we're clearly still dealing with this, and there's no way
we're not dealing with it. That's the issue. We're not dealing with it at all. And
exactly.
It's still like almost a don't ask, don't tell situation, I think, probably in those locker rooms. And that's
and there's no way there's not many gay baseball players who were have already played and still aren't saying anything, or are playing now, and
and there are, I mean, we do know of at least a few in the minor league system. Anderson Comas comes to mind, who is very openly out. He's in the White Sox system, and I think I don't know, just being generational. I know, you guys are Gen Z. I'm an elder millennial. I really do feel like in a lot of ways or Gen X. Sorry, you guys are Gen X. I'm an elder millennial. I think Gen Z is really going to help save the world a little bit, because they have no living memory of the AIDS panic and things like that. Like, even when I was in school, they still had like after school specials that said, hey, if you share your sandwich with a friend, that's not going to you're not going to catch AIDS that way. And like, these kids haven't been tainted with all of that. And I'm really, really hoping that helps, that the absence of that panic helps sort of to pave the way to people being more comfortable being themselves, no matter who they are.
Well, Ken, can I ask you to talk about these two gentlemen, Cole Philpott and Aiden Phipps? And you wrote a story about these guys are both college players here in the Midwest. Here's Cole Philpott, and here's Aiden. And and I read your whole article. It's a great article. In fact, let me find it, and I'll share a link to it in the chat. But could you tell me about these guys?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about Gen Z giving us hope for the future. Those two are it. So we got tipped off at Outsports a few weeks ago that there were a couple of ball players at the college level who were seeing each other. We found on their Instagram a couple of the pictures that you put up there. And so I got to interview them a couple of weeks ago, and their story is a trip. That they play for NCAA Division III schools. Aiden plays for Beloit College as a pitcher, and Cole plays for Grinnell College as a left fielder. And they played each other, their teams played each other for the first time last March. And they encountered each other on the field, didn't face each other during the games. But afterwards, Cole reached out to Aiden on Instagram and just was like, hey, great game. You pitched a great game. Really admire your stuff. And kind of, they formed a very ball playery friendship on social media. And that kind of kept up over the next several series. They just kept messaging each other over and over. And the part that really just blew my mind is that Cole was out to his family as part of the community and maybe a few close friends. And kind of as their messages kept going, Cole kind of started just putting out like little feelers, and eventually I think asked the question, would you consider dating a man? Aiden is bisexual, but was not out to anybody at that point. That was the first time he'd been asked. So, but he was like, yeah, actually, yeah, I would. And so that was kind of his first moment being out to anybody else. Yeah. And so then over the next few weeks, they kept up kind of this new level of their relationship. And eventually Aiden decided during the playoffs that kind of like on the day of meeting his mom for dinner, he decided he wanted to come out to his family. Went into kind of the coming out, oh my God, what am I doing? And like messaging back and forth to Cole pretty frequently. And Cole was just like there for him the whole way. Eventually after the dinner kind of came out to his mom in a text message on the ride back to Beloit. And then they got on the phone and family was totally cool with it. So he was now out to the family as bi. And then the two started dating each other in June and have been since then.
I'm so happy for them. That's adorable.
Yeah. How long until we get ourselves like a baseball Brokeback Mountain kind of movie?
Well, it's not
coming,
that,
right?
I didn't realize until we put this out there that several people remarked on social. This is baseball Heartstopper, is what this is.
It's so cute. I'm dying.
Yeah, and Heartstopper, I was a puddle by episode 3. So, like, and the thing about these guys too is that in talking to them for the interview, they are both total baseball players, like
absolutely
more ball playery. And so I'm sitting there like, as they're telling me this incredible story and the incredible risk Cole took. And I'm also just sitting there going, you guys are adorable. This is so yeah, because they talk. I asked what they talked about, like just as an introduction on Insta, and they were like, yeah, we just both like competing. So we talked about everything we compete in. So it's just like, every post-game interview you've ever heard, only also mixed with a Becky Albertalli novel.
I'm so glad that we love the gayest sport.
Yeah, isn't it great? So the thing about that, to kind of tie this into what you were saying in Field Fly Girl, is that I asked both of them at the end, like, are you looking forward to the first time Cole steps in the box against Aiden this year, what your teammates are going to be yelling at each other? And the smile on their faces just said everything that needed to be said. Like, the teams can't wait to be giving them like the baseball level of shit, but in the right way.
Right? It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
They're my favorites. I love them.
Well, I know that even in my lifetime, there are things that people said that you would never see that happened actually shortly after people said that we'd never see them. Like, for example, same-sex marriage was also honored on the very same day that they honored Glenn Burke. There's a plaque for all those that worked so hard to make that happen. And the roots to the legal challenges that they had to build upon to get it to the point where you could finally get the Marriage Equality Act, it took a lot of time, but it also didn't take that much time. What was the quote? Like, it was 70-30 against same-sex marriage, and it completely flipped within like a decade.
Mm-hmm.
A decade.
Yep.
So critical mass can be achieved quickly, and so I'm rooting for Cole and Aiden, and hopefully there will be less people that feel excluded from not only baseball and team sports, but also in general, really in all walks of life, not just sports.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll feel more comfortable to be out in the sport.
And I also want to emphasize this too, kind of to tie this back into what we are talking about with Glenn Burke, that yes, as we've talked about, his life ended with 20 years of tragedy. No question about that. During his playing career, a whole lot of his teammates were accepting of who he was because he was one of the coolest guys in the clubhouse. Really wanted to make this point in the speech that during his playing career, the players knew Glenn Burke was fun. Glenn Burke would bring in disco records, play him on his boombox for the clubhouse. He would stuff a pillow down his jersey and be Tommy Lasorda for the locker room. They loved it. And he appealed to everybody. Like his friends started with Dusty Baker, which we all know, baseball's ambassador of cool, listens to Miles Davis and Jimi Hendrix. Also friends with Steve Garvey, and who had the fake All-American boy image back then, before we knew he fathered half of the women in Southern California. So, but like
inventing the high five, like we didn't even mention that. Yeah. Glenn Burke invented the high five with Dusty Baker.
Yes. Yeah. It's Dusty hit his 30th home run of the year in the last game of 77. And it was, I think, the fourth 30 home run guy in the Dodgers. It was a big deal. So at the plate, Glenn Burke was just like hand in the air, like, this is awesome. And Baker was like, all right, slap him. And first high five anybody in baseball had ever seen. And then,
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily the players. I'm sure there had to be some who were awful because, again, it's baseball in 77. But for the most part, the clubhouse was with Glenn Burke. It was Dodger old guard like Tommy Lasorda and Al Campanis that wanted to put a stop to this because they couldn't handle who he was.
We have a question in the chat. Terry E would like to know whether it's true, the rumor that Dusty Baker was a significant father figure to Spunky Lasorda.
That I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Dusty because I believe, and I think Andrew Moranis talks about this in Singled Out, one of Dusty's sisters is a lesbian. So Dusty was kind of inclined to be more open-minded when he found out Glenn was gay. So it wouldn't surprise me that he was also kind of a mentor for Tommy Jr. because, yeah, Tommy Lasorda Sr., he wasn't like the no son of mine kind of, after school special kind of homophobic dad, but just the more like there was an emotional distance that he didn't bother to try to bridge with his son.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you had a great line during the speech, which was that everybody loved Glenn Burke so much because of all the things that he brought to the team. And he said, because things get a little bit better as they get a little bit gayer.
Yeah.
And I was like, that nothing could be further. I mean, that nothing could be more true.
Look at these jerseys. I mean, right there.
It almost
jersey. I love it.
Yeah, 10 out of 10, no notes. And the number 23 on the back. I'm a Ryan Sandberg guy, so like it could not be. It was like designed for me.
Yeah. So, well, I love what you do, and I think that you highlighting, stories like Cole and Aiden's, I think that's going to be helpful to other young ball players who will see those guys as mentors, and then in another 10 years we might get to a critical mass, and things, and then you might see some actual major league baseball players who are already out that don't have to come out and everybody finds out. They've always known this, like Colas, who is the only one that I think we know of right now. But hopefully that he will also be a pioneer, that whether he makes the majors or not, or has a great career or not, that just the more there's visibility, the better things will be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Comas had
aspiring to normal. I love that.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to the day where I get to write the story about the first out major leaguer. Like, I don't even know, like, emotionally how that's going to impact me as I sit down at the keyboard for it. But yeah, I really would like the opportunity and the challenge of like summing up like what those emotions are going to be when that happens, because that's going to be just the biggest thrill.
I'm going to let Mike Waller have the last word, at least on this segment. And he says, I have a gay son. The world needs to be better. And I love all of this. So Thanks for writing that in, Mike. And I completely agree. The world needs more of this. And they need, because it's true. Exactly what you said is that the world gets better, the gayer it gets. And I totally agree with that. So we're going to take one last commercial break. We're going to let you go, Ken. Thank you so much for being on the Sun Ranto Show. We're going to come back just with a couple of announcements and some TFCs. We're going to pick a chance winner. So we'll be right back. This one's a real quick commercial, though. All right.
Enjoy.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Ken.
it.
If you like the Cubs a bunch, buy your t-shirts from In the Clutch. We've got all the best styles for you. Dansby, Saya, Morel too. Clark Fly in his double U. Cody Bellinger, smoking dudes. Vintage shirts from days of old. Patrick Wisdom and Nico. You'll look sharp wearing your stro. 10% off with the code SONRANTO. SONRANTO. InTheClutch.com is your store for the most fun baseball shirts on the planet. Don't forget to use promo code SUNRANTO to knock a couple bucks off your purchase. Stack or die, we need more cups. Get it all at In The Clutch. Cause if you like the Cubs a bunch, buy t-shirts from In The Clutch. Get it all at In The Clutch. Get it all at In The Clutch.
Welcome back. Man, I love our show. This is one of the
It's the best.
This was a really good show tonight. And so thanks for everybody that tuned in and didn't watch the baseball game because there's actual baseball being played and we're just sitting here talking about baseball.
If y'all need an update, it's 8-4 with the Astros still leading in the bottom of the 8th.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch that crap anyway. Captain Cubbo tuning in tonight. And you know what I always forget to say? If you're watching on whatever you're watching on, hit the like button because I think it helps our whole like visibility factor aspect. And you could help us.
Tell your friends. Like, don't be like, oh man, I can't believe my friends might know that I'm watching the.
Yeah.
No, tell them.
have a watch party with your friends and enjoy us. So hashtag chance in the chat. Captain Cubbo's tuning in tonight. He put hashtag chance in the chat. You could win the Frank Chance postcard sent to you by me with a message of love and doom. If you're expecting a Frank Chance postcard, it's on its way. Cubs caroling coming up December 16th.
Yes.
I
cannot wait. I'm going to be there for the first time. I'm going.
Oh.
That's all we needed was your voice.
God,
to really get this choir going. Let me tell you.
That's why I scream Sun Ranto every single time. I'm just building up the pipes.
So, anyway, it's December 16th. You should come and sing. We're going to be doing the caroling contest coming up. We'll start that once the season is completely over. It is way too early to start hearing Christmas carols now. It's not Halloween yet. So we got plenty of time to get that going, but start thinking about your carols because it's going to be here before you know it. TFC's this flexing cube. I've just got a couple of things. There's really not a lot going on, and
I have one.
Okay. Well, I think I've got two, so I'll go first. I have three actually. So sorry, I will definitely go first. I like this. Speaking of the playoffs, is Jurgo stuff. I believe this was on Twitter. This was in reference to a play the other night where Altuve was supposed to touch second on his way back around, and the Astros ended up they didn't blow the game.
He definitely didn't tag up. That was hysterical.
Yeah, and he ended up getting called out. It was a toot plan on the base pass. And John Jurgo stuff said they made the bases bigger, and Altuve still couldn't touch second. No, he's too small. He's got the Nick Madrigal disease. Okay, you want to do yours?
Yeah, mine falls into the category of, oh my God, some people are just so damn stupid. Phillies win too fast. And this guy says, if the Phillies continue to make the NLCS too easy for themselves, are they then going to lose the World Series because they got too much rest?
Oh, God.
We all heard the Braves and Dodgers fans claim this as an excuse. They are practically running a scrimmage on the Diamondbacks at this point. What in the hell? Like, this is what the end of season tournament has given us.
Brainworms. It's entirely brainworms.
Oh,
I listened to the Compound podcast, Ian Happ show the other day, and Zach Short.
because Ian Happ has plenty of time to do that show.
Terry writes in, this podcast has successfully implemented the 3-man booth, unlike Marquee Sports Network. It's true. We should broadcast the games.
God
So-
damn, we would be so much better.
God, it would be funny.
And you would have no idea what's going on in the game, but yeah, sure.
Not a clue.
If you think you didn't know what was going on when Boog was in there,
Oh my God,
wait till
no,
we call the game. The tangents we could go on.
If we had something to look at and actually talk about, like, I don't know. Well, I mean,
I'd
we
be
do
all
have a
distracted by
we do a
somebody in the
couple-
crowd or like some ball boy doing something funny.
Hey, look, that guy's making a beer snake.
You're like, was that a sweeper? I don't know what's a sweeper.
So
I would be terrible at the pitches. Oh my
Mm.
God, they're always like, JD's in there and he's like, yeah, that was a change up, that was a curveball.
He
That
was a
I'm always,
pitcher.
like looking at this shit, like, is somebody telling him this? Is there something I'm missing?
So, so I got a couple of slightly morbid ones to
Ooh.
kind of finish off here.
Hey, it's
Um,
Halloween. We're here for
I was
it.
gonna say it is Halloween.
Yeah,
season.
so we'll start with this one. Matt Lindner on Twitter, a good friend of the show. He tweeted a picture of the Cubs billboard. He lives in the neighborhood, and I don't know if you can read this, but on the board it says
Chicago-
it's
yes. What is this? The Chicago Cubs welcome the cast of departing seniors.
yeah, and he tweets, "Welcome, dying old people."
Are they not talking about the high school children?
I just don't understand. I mean, departing, it's freaking fall. Like, what are we doing? Like,
Oh, I misread it and I thought it was like a mystery. The case of the departing seniors,
Oh,
and I thought it was like some
really?
sort of like
oh, cast. No, the
I don't know
cast.
what this means. I'm
no,
very
it says the cast,
confused.
and I just misread it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, was Departing Seniors a play?
I-
The cast
Oh,
of
that's-
Departing Seniors by Noel Coward. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We don't know. So, and then this is the final one I have, and this comes from Dan Nielsen's mom, who sent me this DM on Facebook.
Oh my God! Hold on. Departing Seniors is a movie.
Oh,
The tagline says, following an act of bullying, a gay Mexican-American high schooler develops psychic abilities which he must use to stop a mysterious serial killer targeting his classmates.
what the fuck were they doing at Wrigley?
Good Lord. You started that description. And I was like, how many writers were there? Everybody had an idea. Like,
Oh my God!
Yeah, sounds like something I'd write. Jesus, why didn't I write that play? so the final one I have is from Dan Nielsen's mom. She sent me a message that highlighted from an article from Sports Illustrated.
this is the epitome of a message of love and doom.
Yeah. So Joan sent me this, that Joe Buck says he's done calling network baseball. And she takes that as proof that Dan is handling things from above.
Oh my God! We've heard our last back at the wall. It is gone.
Yeah, I love it. It's just like, hey, Joe Buck announces he doesn't want to do baseball anymore. It's like, that's my son. He's handling things from above. Oh man! So thanks, Dan. If it was you that did it, I would really appreciate it. Hashtag chance in the chat, and you can win the message of love and doom. This was in the chance bag tonight. And it kind of got bent. It is a Larry Rothschild autographed postcard. So I have no idea where I got this, but I have it, and it's in the
postcard.
It's not that makes you want to put hashtag chance in the chat, but there's lots of great stuff in there. This was sent by Wrigleyville Bum, and I put this is a South Bend Cubs hat, one of a few hats he sent. There is an old style koozie in here, pretty cool stuff. This one made us. There's a Cubs luggage tag, and trying to find. Oh yeah, and this went in there. This, speaking of Ricketts hanging out in 1989 with Kid Rock in the bleachers. Here are the pins of Grace and Dunstan that they gave away at Wrigley. These are also in the bag. But look at this. This is a hefty bag. And one of the it comes in a marquee bag, your favorite Cubs network.
Oh,
Your second favorite Cubs network after
these chance gifts brought to you by Hefty. A hefty bag of chance gifts.
Yeah, hefty bag of chance gifts. So hashtag chance in the chat. And of all of the chance winners, you don't get this tonight if you win. This is of all the chance winners at the end of the year. You get the entire shebang, the whole enchilada, the big kahuna.
We should have enchiladas on a lead on watch night.
We should. Although
we want
if we're gonna eat Dominican food, we got to eat chicharron and rice and beans.
Oh hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I'll get some chicharron. I'm gonna hang out with I think Luis Medina knows where to get good chicharron. I'm saying it all wrong. I know better. I'm like chicharron.
Isn't that Madonna's last name?
Huh?
Isn't that Madonna's last name?
Medina? No. Can you imagine if Luis married Madonna and her name was Madonna Medina?
That's why you tune into the Sun Ranto show.
You don't get this. You get earthquakes. You get name jokes. And you get Larry Rothschild autographs.
Everybody tune in to the Lawrence Holmes and Dave.
Who's Holmes with
Dan
right
Bernstein, that's his name. Lawrence Holmes and Dan Bernstein.
Bernstein and Holmes.
Bernstein and Holmes. 10 a.m. on weekdays. They're my friends.
I am going to share my screen here. It's got hashtag chance in the chat, and I'm going to pick it. Okay, so this is your last chance to put chance, and then we're all going to hang out over on the Discord for about 45 minutes an hour.
Yeah.
So here we go. Boom, boom.
No
Come on
whammies,
now.
no whammies.
Come on. It's going slower than usual. Seth Kennedy, congratulations.
Hi,
By the way,
Congratulations, Seth. Is that a first time win this year? I don't think it's the first time ever, but is it a first time? Seth, if you're in the chat, let us know if that's a first time win this year.
But hi, Seth. Glad you won.
We're going to do a big show for Seth. He's going to be running the marathon, the New York City Marathon, actually.
Really?
Yeah,
When?
and in November, whenever day that is, and what I'm thinking that we do is, Seth can't tune into this show, but we record a show in which we talk about every single player on the 40-man roster.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the show. And I think it's going to take about 3 hours, 3:15, and we just talk about every guy on the 40. We break it down into like 8-minute segments, because what would it be? Like, you get 10 minutes a guy? I don't know. There's 40 guys, 400 minutes. That's way too many minutes. That's 6 hours.
I don't know. There's a lot of guys you don't want to talk about, though.
I don't think I have 10 minutes on some of these guys.
Okay, well, we'll do 20 minutes on Christopher Morel. No, we'll do an hour on Christopher Morel, and then we'll talk about everybody else first.
Did I mention
2 hours on everyone else.
in all of our lead-on talk, did I mention that the Águilas and the Tigres del Licey are going to be playing at a game at Citi Field in November?
Ooh, that is cool.
I don't remember the exact date. I'll pull it up. I'll put it on the Discord. I'll talk about it next week. I don't know.
Go see it with Brian Salvatore.
Dude,
We're already getting guest hosts jumping in. Waller wants Miles Master.
Be quiet, Michael.
we'll let you handle that one.
Your fetish for Miles Mastrobuoni.
We'll take a break. Yeah, we'll take a little break and and just leave Waller on there talking about what Miles Mastrobuoni for 15 minutes and then come back. So, all right. Well, that is the show. That was fun. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. So
that was great. Great guests tonight.
Yeah.
So much,
very
much fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so join the Patreon, patreon.com/sunranto. If you're not already, you can get a week long. It's only $1 a month. You can get a week long, what's it called? The trial membership. You can just sign up trial like ways. Bernie says good night and go Kyle Schwarber. I agree.
Keep crushing them baseballs, Kyle.
So because it is Steve Bartman time of the year, I'm going to play damn Steve Bartman because damn him. He should know better. Stand the fuck away from the catch, you idiot. That's what I'm saying.
Good night, besties.
Spagog.
Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his fault. Never should have reached over the wall to catch the ball. Had to wait 13 more years until we won it all. Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his. Damn Steve Bartman, all his fault. Never should have reached over the wall to catch the ball. Had to wait 13 more years until we won it all. Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his fault. So long ago, I blame Bartman sitting in the first row with a stupid turtleneck and his 80s headphones. Some blame Alex Gonzalez, some blame Dusty Baker. I'm still blaming Bartman almost 20 years later. Bartman interfered with one of the Cubbies players. Hope he's no catch now when he goes to meet his maker. Damn Steve Bartman, all his fault. Never should have reached over the wall to catch the ball. Had to wait 13 years until we won it all. Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his. Damn Steve Bartman, all his fault. Never should have reached over the wall to catch the ball. Had to wait 2 years until we won it all. Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his fault. Some fans want to blame a New York cat, but all Bartman had to do was stand a little back. Once so we even knew he could have made the catch. That's why Bartman's name is forever in the trash. His name should be on a half-gallon milk carton that says missing worst cup that's Steve Bartman. If I was awarded, he'd never get a pardon. If I pitched against him, I'd give him my high heart. Damn Steve Bartman, all his fault. Never should have reached over the wall to catch the ball. Had to wait 13 years until we won it all. Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his. Damn Steve Bartman, all his fault. Never should have reached over the wall to catch the ball. Had to wait 13 years until we won it all. Damn Steve Bartman, it was all his fault. All his fault.
All